Alright, we did a video a while back about Born to Fire, about kiln upgrades, about some really cool controls, and a year's worth of testing. And it's 39 minutes. So it's just too long. People only watch part of it. Artists. Gotta love it. So here's the quickie. Born to Fire. They upgraded their kilns, one for soda, one for reduction. Both have oxygen probes. Both have the coolest control monitor in the world. It's digital. If you really like this thing, then you got to contact me because it's easy to build one yourself. That's enough of that. The important thing that we didn't get enough play on is the group. These people have been working on this for a year. They're all highly skilled artists, and they've come up with a kind of surefire way to get great reduction. And on the left is their chart, and they're going to share it with you. And I'm going to keep this darn thing under 5 minutes. So on to what the heck is reduction. Third time's a charm. They gave me the big hook. I can't stop talking. Okay, let's get to work here. Reduction. What is it to a potter? Often it's thought of what it can do to the metals in your glazes. So the test tile on the left is copper, fired in oxidation. It's kind of a blase minty green. And on the right it's a very dramatic ruby red. So that's why folks like to fire in reduction. With respect to oxides, it can change their color. But I haven't told you what it is. So from a pottery's perspective, it's the opposite of oxidation. And oxidation, as we all know, is the presence of excess air or oxygen in the kiln while we're firing. So reduction in the kiln is the lack of oxygen. If you ask a chemist about an oxidation reduction chemical reaction, they're going to tell you, well, if this is reduced, it's gaining electrons. It's going to confuse you to death. So if you know that explanation, that's great. If you don't, we're just sticking with the potter's explanation, which is we've got something starving for oxygen. And what is that something? So to get an oxidation firing in a gas kiln, and we're going to say natural gas because that's what the alpines are, we supply the right mixture of natural gas and air, or oxygen in general, in a 10-to-1 ratio. And that gives us a nice blue flame that's really clean, it's oxygen rich, and it burns efficiently. And so you say, well, what the heck, how do you get reduction? You take that same flame and you starve it for some of its primary air. Now you turn a blue, beautiful flame into a very yellow, wispy, carbon monoxide laden, ugly flame. But the good thing about it is potters view it as it's looking for oxygen to finish its combustion, which is not a bad functional way to think about it. Especially if you don't want to have to think about which way the electrons are going and why is reduction a gaining of an electron. Never mind. Anyway, so we put this starved flame into the kiln, and it creates a reduction atmosphere, and it, as potters like to think about it, it sucks the oxygen out of our glazes, and that's a good way to think about it. What does it affect? I said the oxides. Most people know this by copper red. So you get a lot of people say, well, how's your reduction firing? And they'll look at your reds and they'll go, yeah, it's good, it's bad, whatever. So the oxides it affects. Well, copper's at the top of the list. Goes from green to red. Iron goes to black, but you never see black because it reoxidizes and turns rusty. And tin, which is really used with copper mostly in a 3-to-1 ratio. There's others. Cobalt will be affected, nickel, manganese, and much more. But it's not only about colors or changing the colors of your oxides. So if you look below on the left, we've got carbon trapping in Chino, and that is a reduction, something fired in a reduction environment. That's how you get that look. The vessel to the right looks great, but you're saying, well, it's kind of ordinary. But if you notice, there's really nice iron highlights in there, and guess what? When you oxidize iron, put it in oxidation firing, it's kind of a refractory. When you take that same iron and you reduce it, it becomes a flux. So now you've got extra movement in your glazes. To the right of that is the great platter with excellent use of Shino and again carbon trapping, and to the right of that is a very deep, uniformly reduced copper red. So we know all that stuff now. All we know is when, and these are the folks at Clay Space, this firing group, have worked on this to try to maximize how well they get their stuff reduced. So they're calling 2 points, primary points. They go into heavy reduction, often called clay body reduction or abbreviated as body reduction at 1500 degrees. To them, they set their heavy reduction period starting at 1500 and extending through 1700 at 0.8 on their oxygen meter. Now, they have an oxygen meter, and I'm going to say this more than once. Go get one if you can. It'll help you a lot. Their heavy reduction, they've figured out for their kiln to minimize the infiltration of air or oxygen. They need to go into this heavy reduction period at a minimum of 4 to 5 inches of gas, for lack of a better description, to fill their kiln so they don't have any dead spots. After 1700 degrees, they decrease their O2 level to 0.7 for the balance of the firing, and that is almost always from 1700 degrees on up to cone 10, because that's what they fire. The only other thing to tell you about firing in a gas kiln, because now you kind of know all about reduction. You go, oh, it's pretty simple. And it is. But everybody should know a couple things about firing rates. What are they? That's just simply how fast are we firing, how many degrees per hour. And then the best cautionary note ever is heat everything up slowly from room temperature to, and I'm just going to say 250 degrees. And why is that? Because water boils at 212 degrees. So we want to be sure to remove all the moisture from all your pots, and that'll go a long way to helping them not crack due to steam generation. And what happens if we generate steam? You know, it's just some expanding water, right? But if we generate steam quickly, it can't get out of your wares and it cracks them. So, general procedure: candle the kiln to 220, heat slowly to 250, and then the only thing left to know is how fast can I go. I'm not going to go through all the nuances of this. 400 to 500 degrees an hour has proven safe, and it is basically the rate that all the electric kiln controllers go. So we've been firing stuff at 400 to 500 degrees per hour for years, and so that speed appears pretty darn safe for the average, pottery ware. The other thing you get some pushback is people with quartz inversion, and the real answer is quartz inversion happens all the time, especially at 400 to 500 degrees an hour and even faster, and really it's not something you can stop, and it just happens. It goes from alpha to beta on up and beta to alpha on the way down. Okay, so the clay can take it. And then the last esoteric thing you'll get from people is, well, cristobalite, you got to watch it. If you get cristobalite, it's going to crack at 453 degrees. And you can't have cristobalite unless you fire in excess of cone 14 for some time. So we never do. We never make cone 14. We certainly don't do that for any length of time. And then we don't take those wares out and refire them ever. So we don't concern ourselves with cristobalite. You can if you want. It's just probably not likely you're ever going to have it. And this is the speedy version. So reduction is super simple. You create a reduction atmosphere by injecting this flame that's starved for oxygen in your kiln, and functionally it goes and steals the oxygen from your glazes. And when do you do that? According to the schedule that they've prepared and tested, and I like the schedule, they start at 1500 for their heavy reduction at 0.8, and they end their heavy reduction at 1700 degrees, 0.8, and then they go to 0.7 for the balance of the firing. The only cautionary note I haven't told you about is you got to figure out how to keep ordinary air from creeping into your kiln. If air can creep in and has a clear path to your wares and up the flue and doesn't get mixed really well right away, then you could have a dead spot, which fires like it's in oxidation, because it is. So that's a little trick you have to figure out on your kiln, how to minimize that. And then 2 cautionary notes: don't ever reduce below 1400 degrees. Do not do that. It's dangerous. So our view is it's dangerous to reduce or begin reduction below 1400 degrees. Don't do it. And the last cautionary note is obvious: is follow all safety protocols, procedures, manufacturer's requirements for the safe operation of your kiln and anything you've developed to keep you safe. Kilns are fun, kilns are flames, kilns can be super creative, and when you ignore them, kilns can be dangerous. So let's stay healthy and fire lots of cool stuff. Results. The piece on the left is fantastic, evenly reduced. It's got some nice iron accenting, and the glaze has good movement, probably as a result of that. And the right is even just as spectacular, but a different look. It's got some carbon trapping, and if you actually look at this piece close up, the iron sparkles, so it borders on aventurine without a powered cooldown cycle, so that's actually pretty spectacular. On the left, super copper red, you know all about that. Now these folks at the firing group at Clay Spaces have developed this schedule, so they get super clear, bright reds, uniform. It's no challenge for them anymore. Now the challenge is to combine glaze effects, now that they know the look that they're going to get. So they're improving at that, and they get great reds. On the right is Shino with carbon trapping, and it's a great example of carbon trapping. Texture and look and color. So once you can reduce, and their 14 or 1500 to 1700 degree range is well-known secret, great place to trap carbon, then you can start experimenting and creating wares that look like this. So bowl on the left, I haven't mentioned it or put it up here, I don't think. But I mean, this is like a perfect bowl shape, so the throne shape is fantastic. The interior glaze is just such a nice, even hard candy gloss, which, as opposed to the outer glaze, which is a soft, textured, kind of flat look with cool iron accents and a silver transition area. I mean, it's just unbelievable. So, done in reduction, and well planned in reduction, but also really super well thrown too. So I have to get off that picture because it makes me hungry. To the right of that is a great platter and a great Shino example, and even some more advanced Shino techniques, because if you look, there's a color variation, and it's probably from waxing the surface. So as you get confident in getting repeatable carbon trapping, then you start to explore other ways to make your Shinos look differently, and there you go. There's a spectacular piece. Last but not least, reds. So when you get super uniform reds and you make super uniform, wonderfully crafted pieces, and then you glaze them and maybe put some highlights in them, you get super uniform, wonderfully crafted, great pieces. And that's what you see there. So no challenge for the folks at Clay Space other than conjuring them up and making them. As far as getting the red, their schedule does it. So that's it. We're going to move on to just the closing clip, which I promise you will be as quick as I can speak. So here we are at the end, and I can't say enough about this simple schedule. This thing is fantastic. I'm going to do this a little out of order, so if I seem crazy, it's probably because I am. These folks deserve all the credit. They put their artwork at work for a year's hard work. And then they came up with this schedule, and this schedule is super successful and super simple, so anybody can follow this thing and then build on it. So sharing that with the greater art community is super laudable. So here we go. For Rhonda, for Yumiko, for Marcia, for Ken, Karen, Paul, Susan, Michelle, Tom, and me, not so much me. When you see these folks, you got to give them a hearty handshake and a pat on the back. For them to share this work and to do all this work and then share it to the community is truly laudable. So I hope you appreciate it. I hope you see them, and I hope you tell them just, how great it is, and hopefully they inspire you to continue to develop this schedule. So having said all that, a little about the monitor, because it would be hard to do this video without it. It's super custom. It's super fantastic. You get your rate calculated per hour right in front of you. Rather than take out your iPhone, time it for a minute and multiply by 60, or time it for 2 minutes, multiply by 30. So all this information is right in front of you. Most important is the oxygen reading, and you can buy an oxygen probe, but this is super nice because it's graphic and it's cool, and it serves more than one kiln, and it's just got all kinds of goodies to it. Some of those goodies are they can do their firing and attend to it and watch it while they're working other things in the studio. So iPhone, Android, iPad, you name it. We can put it up on a screen to monitor live firing. We can watch both kilns. We can remotely log in. We get full data at the end of each firing. So if you want to repeat it or tweak it, Either way, it's a great thing to have if you can have it. A lot of folks don't think they can if you're a studio operator or somebody new to whatever. If you're a little industrious, you give me a call. It's all industry standard stuff. It's super easy to make, and we'll just share that with you, I guess. Then, if you don't have an oxygen probe, you have to learn how to fire by eye. And that's good. People do it for years. So that is a early reduction flame 0.82. And then, back in the day we would say this is great. It's yellow. It's uniform front to back. There's it's very, very even in color and height. It's probably 16 to 18 inches tall, and it's a wonderful early reduction flame. 0.82. Heavy reduction. Same firing. Now, if I asked you what is that, you would go 0.82, and I'd go no, that's probably 0.7 at about 2,000 degrees. So, as your kiln warms up, later in the firing, the flame changes looks, and so knowing what to look for and how it should look is important if you're going to fire by eye. And what I like about the oxygen probe, and that's why I always say to folks, get one if you can, because you can repeat your firings more easily, and it will help you train your eye. So you'll look at the number, you'll look at the flame, you'll know what temperature, and eventually you get a better feel for what the flame should look like and what level of reduction you're really achieving. Without that, it's kind of a guess. But having said that, can be done if you don't have an oxygen probe. We just think it's way easier if you do, and can be done if you don't have a monitor, but it's super easy to do if you have a monitor. Alright, so I hope we piqued your interest, and they haven't given me the big hook yet, so I'm talking as fast as I can. Again, the schedule is everything. It's super simple to follow, and the results have proven to be super fantastic, and I just can't say enough about them offering this to the community. Having said all that, I hope we piqued your interest. I hope we gave you the reduction bug. I hope you can learn a little about reduction, or that we've at least taught you a little about reduction, kind of a 101 reduction basics. And all I can say is, keep firing and keep learning. So I hope you enjoyed it.